His sexism was punished. I have finally found the sub for this story. It has been booted in other subs because it only fits here, and I just discovered this fantastic place today. The principal players are me, Sexist Boss/Director, CEO of Sexist Boss. In the spring of 2005 I was fortunate enough to get my daughter accepted into a fantastic school for children 0 to 3. I loved it there except for the director. He was very dismissive of me. And I noticed most of the mothers. In fact, I can't remember him going out of his way to talk to anyone but the fathers. At the time it was a small alarm in my head, but it didn't stop me from applying for a management position when it opened. Director didn't think much of me, so he was shocked when I shared with the hiring committee all of the credentials I had earned. I know he didn't bother to read my hiring packet. I aced the interview with the other 4 members, so he couldn't stop me from being hired. He tried. I loved the job because part of it was supervising parent drop-off and pick-up in case of questions or complaints. I also had time to play with the kids. Since I had children this age, and my daughter was in one of the classes, I really loved this time. I should mention I had 7 brothers growing up. It was during a time when I had to know how to physically fight or I was toast. I lost the violent streak as it doesn't serve me, but I never lost the feeling that I am any man's equal. Any man. I don't care if you are my boss. He noticed my lack of female deference to him almost immediately. Even though I reorganized the entire filing system, tracked intake, and then gathered a ton of resources for our parents, we had coat drives for the kids, toys for tots. Lots of great help from the community. He thought I was worthless and was looking for a reason to terminate me. Just got out of an abusive relationship with 2 kids under 3. Well, he began to really watch me. He monitored my time in the rooms obsessively. I only spent an hour combined for drop-off and pick-up a day. It was in my job description. Yet he felt it was more important that I be in the office and no longer have access to the rooms. This cut me off from parents who would need me and complain I wasn't there. The teachers hated it, but there was nothing I could do about it. Then he moves me from a large office that could accommodate these meetings to a literal windowless room closer that parents had to stand at the door to talk about confidential information. This led to less parental involvement in the program. It was frustratingly difficult, but I made the best of it. Cue Christmas time. It was huge because we made sure all the families had presents and a big dinner for their holidays. This landed on me, but I had made relationships, so I was successful. New coats. Great toys. Large gift baskets of food. Boxes of dinner. I had been having medical issues that I won't get into much because it has no bearing on the story, except I got a hernia lifting at work. I told the school nurse what happened in confidence. It was the day of the big Christmas party. I had things to do, but I thought I was confiding in a friend. She told me she had to tell the director that I had a hernia, that I had lifting restrictions. I knew what would happen, but her hands were tied. Yep. Got kicked out of work that day. Told to go home because I was injured, and it was an hour before this huge party with fun lined up for my own kids who missed the whole thing along with their mom. I looked for other work. The same nurse told me about a contract manager position at the state that was opening up. I applied thinking there was no chance, but I got the job. I didn't think too much of it, but she knew about the opening because that position manages the contract my director was supervising. This made me his contact with the state, thus becoming more powerful than he ever was. Rule 1 in the life of the nonprofit. Work with the state and the state will work with you. I had no problem with professionalism. I had zero plans to use my newfound power over this man that made my life a living nightmare for over a year. I planned to just forget. He had other ideas. He shares with CEO what a pain in the ass I am, dang, and that made CEO really nervous. This had a backfiring effect as now CEO was watching director more closely. I went about my new life with real joy. I got into the groove, and to be honest, there is about 5 people's worth of work for every 1 government drone, so he wasn't necessary on my mind. Not until I got to rewrite the contracts. Cue the nukes. I made sure to know, by heart, everything in that contract. It was my Bible, as I quoted it several times a day. I then started to use it as a sledgehammer with the director. I'd get snippy emails about requirements, so I'd quote the contract, which usually stated he had to do what I requested as long as it was reasonable. CC'd my supervisor and moved on with glee. Everything had to be by the letter, but even more so with him. I made him report everything, in detail, always using the contract as backup. I started to become obsessed with his billing, as I was the one approving his grant payments. I did enough research to find out that CEO was into shady billing practices with Medicaid. Huge no-no. I began to request more information to build a case for a state audit of the contract. CEO catches wind of all this because director is still complaining. Only he is using unkind words to describe me. Starts with B. Rhymes with which. Finally, the CEO realizes that I maybe will find something. I know this because in the middle of my investigation he cancels the contract. I am not surprised. But I am delighted. My current supervisor, who had a vendetta against the company for poor service, was deliriously happy. The CEO had planned on requesting a huge budget increase to coincide with increased service, muscling out our smaller but stellar contracts. This would have been disaster. It was a win for us. And it made them lose out on potentially millions of dollars in revenue opportunities. In the end, because there was no longer a contract, the director was moved to another part of the company. I saw him out and about one day, and it was the dirtiest look I'd ever gotten. It was orgasmic. Alright, you beat the bully at his own game. Congrats, sister. Thank you. It wasn't intentional until it was, and by that time there was no stopping me. So many years later and I still giggle. Good. I still get a great big grin on my face when I remember winning the case a former employer filed against me. Back in the mid-90s. The tiny twerp, as we office staff called him, was an optometrist and had fired me unjustly. After I'd worked for him and his partner for 3 years. I filed for unemployment insurance. And Dr. Twerp filed a protest over it. Meaning if his protest was upheld by the State Department of Labor, I would have had to repay all the unemployment money I'd collected over the 9 months between jobs. Didn't happen though. The state appeals examiner ruled in my favor. Boy, I wish I could have seen Twerp's face when he read the examiner's decision letter. My husband said I should have sued him for sexual discrimination. And I would have done it gladly. Except that Dr. Twerp was not a sexist. He was an equal opportunity bully. He treated the male employees the same way he treated the female employees. A bully is a bully. We have different names for different types of bullies: domestic abusers for the ones that do their stuff in the home, rapists, pedophiles and perverts for the bullies who target their victims' private parts, and the bullies that do their business on the world stage, the Hitlers, Genghis Khans and Saddam Husseins we call bloodthirsty tyrants. But regardless of the scale, the bullying all stems from the same sick place in the human psyche. Solid revenge. But I would say this is more pro-revenge. Nuclear is the kind of revenge that leaves the person without family, occupation or anything else left in their life. Yeah, this didn't seem nuclear at all. She didn't even get him fired, right? Just demoted? This makes me smile. Thanks for the story, and I hope that director had. Don't tell me I'm going to get diabetes. Okay, I don't know if this really counts as petty revenge, but I got quite a kick out of it. So I am on holiday with my mother in Barcelona and we were walking through the city. I asked if we could find a nice gelato place on the way back to our hotel, but on the way we also went to a grocery shop to get water, and I asked to buy some sweets, the kind that you can't get where I live, so we did. As we walked I ate 2 of the sweets in the packet. My mom immediately tells me to not eat so much. I get kind of offended because she had been saying this sort of thing the whole holiday. She told me that I eat too much sugar and I told her that I literally had 2 pieces. She then proceeded to tell me that I ate too much and if I continue I'm going to get diabetes. This actually made my blood boil. I'm kind of insecure about myself. I'm not overweight or anything, but I'm not skinny, and sugary food is my comfort food even though I don't eat ridiculous amounts. And she was just being insensitive. So the whole way back I didn't talk. We go to sit on a bench for a bit, then she asks if I want to go find a nice gelato place. This is where the plan hatched in my head. I look online to find gelato places near me, ignoring the few that were a few minutes away, and told her that there's one but it is 20 minutes away. So we walk a while to find it, but before we go and I tell her, "Oh, wait. I thought I wasn't meant to eat sugary things?" And I continue walking, leaving her just stood outside the shop, though I desperately wanted the gelato. Seeing the look on her face made it worth it. Things like what she said piss me off. My youngest has had type 1 for 14 years now. People here either don't know about type 1 or assume there's no difference between type 1 and type 2. Imagine a young child having to eat or drink some quick sugar because they're low. And someone stepping in and saying, "You shouldn't eat that." Or not being allowed to drink water or go to the bathroom in school when they need to become their running high. I had to specifically tell my child to leave when she needed to, and I would deal with the consequences. When she was diagnosed, the teacher said, "Oh, my dad has type 2. I know all about it. She'll be fine." This was the same teacher I had to go ham on when she refused to let her leave to go to the bathroom. Now I know that this kind of statement is a huge red flag. You shouldn't eat X or you're going to get diabetes. Oh, this is so sweet. I feel the diabetes setting in. That dessert looks like it's made of diabetes. Could we just not? It's not how any of this works. And it wasn't funny the first time. As someone married to a T1D, nothing makes me cringe more than these kinds of stupid comments. It's tired, lazy, and ignorant. Good on Op for making her mom pay for that kind of comment. I'm sorry your mom treated you. I wish that pun had been intended like that. My mom does similar things, and I'm now realizing it has a lot to do with her undiagnosed eating/exercise disorder. I've taken to just making eye contact while eating until she stops telling me how she just isn't an ice cream person. Also, to the haters in this comment section, please consider who benefits from your opinions on food/diet/fat people. Petty revenge martyrdom. Well played. You can be in your late 40s and your parents will still treat you like a teenager sometimes. Such is life. Who was the door? When years back when I lived at home, I'll add here, our house wasn't very big and all the rooms were quite close together. This will make sense soon. If my mother was awake, no one was allowed to sleep. She would yell up the stairs, slam around to try and wake everyone up. This one day I was getting ready to go for a job interview and wanted to take a bath before I got ready, as our boiler made a noise, so I ran the tap slowly to try not to make the boiler kick off. And the water pours hotter that way. Anyway, as I come out of my room with my stuff ready for the bath, my mother comes out of her room raging and screaming in my face, "Why am I running a bath? Why am I running the tap slowly and not fully turned round?" There was no reasoning with her. Fast forward a few weeks later, I didn't get the other job. I finished my shift an hour early, electric went off in the job I had at the time. Came home by about 6 a.m. I came home and hammered on the door knocker. Walked away and sat on the bench at the park, just a 5 minutes walk from the house. Read my book, finished the rest of my lunch till shortly after 7 a.m. when I'd be expected. I left myself in, did everything I'd usually do. Came in the front room, my mother was sitting there trying my best to act surprised. "Oh, morning, mother. What's wrong?" Some idiot was banging on the door and woke me up. Either that I was dreaming. "Who does that?" "Strange," I said. "Would you like a cuppa? I have the kettle on." Walks away with a spring in my step. "Ha! Would you like a cuppa?" Love the sarcasm. "How is your relationship now?" Silent treatment. She sounds like a narcissist. How miserable for everyone living there. What goes around comes around. This is a short but sweet petty revenge. I was in the supermarket today and I had my trolley next to me whilst at the deli ordering ham. I couldn't move the trolley as I was being blocked in on one side by another customer and a Karen on the other. I'm ordering my ham when another deli lady asks Karen if she wants anything. She replies loudly in the snarkiest tone that she wishes she could see the ham if it weren't for gesturing at me, this lady and her big trolley. She loudly then states that she will have to come back later when people aren't blocking the ham. Whatever. I swing my trolley. She shimmies out of the way as it would have hit her otherwise, and she orders. I move on and continue my shop. When I go to the checkout, I find the line with what seemed to be the slowest checkout person. To know why it happens to me, but it just does, and I wait. I start to put my stuff onto the conveyor belt when Karen shows up. She has about 5 to 6 items in her trolley, and I would normally let her go first. But today I think no. She can wait her turn like everyone else, and if she hadn't have been snarky earlier I would have been nicer, but hey. What goes around comes around, Laren. That was extremely petty. I love it. You should have announced that to her. Typically I would let you through. But since you acted like a bitch earlier, I'll let you wait. Cheers. So her theory is that she needs to be able to see the deli ham to order it? Must think that she has to inspect a deli ham to make sure that it's up to her standards. I always inspect. Even if I was buying deli ham. You deli ham, you check more to see that you're getting the meat you're seeing rather than an end piece they've got behind it. I would have just asked the other customers if they'd mind moving over. Laren. Smart. Big loud Karen got what she deserved. I love a little petty justice. For a moment I thought this story was going to be about you buying all the ham in the entire store. Brilliant and effective. Thank you. Trolley sounds so much better than shopping cart. I have a better time pushing one. Y'all have the best words.